The second cycle of collected affinities is not merely an expansion of power, but a confrontation with the fragmentation you've mistaken for mastery. And true integration requires not hoarding abilities as trophies, but weaving them into a self that honors the cost of each bond when the system demands you treat souls as currency. In the Affinity Collector 2, Jonathan Brooks delivers an Isekai LitRPG that transforms the collection trope into a profound exploration of relational sovereignty and systemic critique, proving that in worlds where connection is quantified, liberation isn't found in completion, it's forged in the radical act of valuing presence over accumulation when every interface screams for optimization. This isn't merely another progression fantasy with stat sheets, it's a psychologically precise narrative where every acquired affinity feels like both gift and obligation. Consent to bond is negotiated through mutual recognition rather than assumed utility, and growth means honoring the person beneath the power when mechanics demand they remain resource. From the first resonant hum narration, listeners are immersed in a landscape where data is destiny and empathy is the only unquantifiable metric. Perfect for fans of emotionally complex isekai fiction and stories where male vulnerability defies genre expectations. This audiobook serves up atmospheric wonder, relentless emotional honesty, and a protagonist whose journey from strategic collector to sovereign partner resonates with anyone who's ever mistaken inventory for intimacy. When transmigrator Kalen Vance enters the second Octaeteris cycle with his first cycle affinities intact, he expects tactical advantage, not to discover his accumulated bonds replicate the exact isolation that fractured his original world, and the system's cycle bonus forces him to confront the grief he buried beneath legendary status as the perfect collector. But as Kalen navigates new realms and fractured alliances, he realizes this cycle isn't about completion, it's about recalibration. Brooks masterfully avoids reducing Kalen to smug optimizer or his affinities to mere tools. Instead, he crafts a narrative where collection becomes therapeutic framework, where consent is renegotiated through setting boundaries within systemic constraints, and where liberation requires seeing each bond as relationship rather than resource. The audiobook narration amplifies this emotional precision, capturing Kalen's disciplined focus fracturing into genuine receptivity, while secondary voices, affinities, allies, echoes of past cycles shift subtly between transactional expectation and hidden solidarity, making every acquisition feel like both test and testimony. You don't just hear him level up, you feel the seismic shift of a man learning that some collections can only be honored when you stop treating them as possessions. What elevates the Affinity Collector 2 beyond typical isekai fare is its nuanced portrayal of magical bonds as collaborative creation rather than abstract optimization. Kalen isn't merely expanding his arsenal, he's confronting how collector culture taught him to equate worth with utility, challenging the notion that safety requires emotional detachment. His relationships evolve through acts of radical reciprocity, sharing silences during resonance synchronization that bypass performance, establishing protocols that protect both systemic integrity and psychological safety, and defending affinity's right to autonomy against factions who mistake evolution for inefficiency. Supporting characters add vital texture, fellow collectors whose strategies encode unprocessed trauma, native inhabitants whose wisdom carries intergenerational weight, even the Octaeteris cycle itself, rendered as a living archive whose temporal loops absorb centuries of unspoken bargains. Every interaction reinforces the novel's core truth. In economies built on extraction, tenderness is technique, and presence is the only sustainable resource. Even the LitRPG mechanics serve thematic depth, with affinity trees mirroring emotional attunement, and cycle milestones becoming metaphors for earned trust. For audiobook listeners, this production is an immersive sensory descent into reflective intensity. The narrator embodies Kalen's evolution with remarkable range, from clipped professionalism to trembling openness during breakthroughs, while supporting characters are distinguished through vocal textures that honor diverse expressions of agency without caricature. Sound design enhances atmosphere without overwhelming immersion. Distant harmonic chimes marking temporal rhythm rain against waystation windows during vulnerable confessions, the hushed hum of affinities syncing with breath during moments of clarity, all anchor mythic stakes in tangible reality. Pacing mirrors the cadence of cyclical recovery, deliberate during reflection and foundational bonding, then surging with urgency as external threats collide with internal awakenings. Whether you're commuting through sedentary routines or moving through active days, the audiobook creates a portable sanctuary where slowness feels sacred and embodiment feels lifeline. It's storytelling as somatic validation, transforming passive listening into active participation in a journey where ascension isn't about rising above limits, but about rooting deeper within them. Ultimately, the Affinity Collector 2 redefines Isekai LitRPG by centering male emotional labor within systemic frameworks. It satisfies genre cravings for satisfying progression and high-stakes tension, while delivering substantive commentary on toxic productivity, identity formation, and the radical act of trusting your whole self when systems demand fragmentation. Prior series knowledge enriches context, but this volume stands confidently as a complete emotional odyssey for returning readers. If you've ever wondered whether strength can coexist with softness, or if true mastery requires embracing what others fear, this audiobook will affirm that sometimes the most powerful act is simply choosing to connect. Press play, open the interface, and prepare to believe that even in landscapes shaped by excess, hearts still find ways to focus. Your next favorite isekai isn't waiting in flawless builds, it's waiting in the brave, trembling choice to specialize in being human.